So we shall begin. Welcome, everyone. So nice to see friends I know and friends I'm eager to meet. My name is Therese Bimka, and I'm delighted to be hosting tonight's The One Spirit Gathering um, on the Heart of Stillness. So, Debbie, I want to begin with this poem, The Heart of Stillness. Enter. This is the terrain beyond words, fundamental awareness, emptiness, great mystery. Here in the heart of stillness, we encounter that which is beyond form, beyond our knowing and inquisitive mind. In the stillness of the heart, we find source, God, boundless love, radical vulnerability, radical compassion. In the stillness of my heart, I hear your name. I breathe your breath. In stillness, I am with you. In silence, I hear you. In the stillness of my heart, I find you. In love, with love, and for love. So during these very accelerated and turbulent times, we are being called. It is no accident that we are the ones here. We are the ones who've incarnated at this time. And one of the places I believe we are being called is to grow hearts big enough, capable enough to hold what the Buddhists call the 10,000 joys and the 10,000 sufferings. It's always a bit of a challenge to bring language and conceptualization to what is fundamentally mysterious and beyond language, right? But one perspective that I think brings a very interesting framework to the interspiritual consciousness conversation, and that comes from the work of Bill Plotkin. Some of you may be familiar with him. He's the founder of the Animus Institute, where he leads vision quests and does nature-based programming. And what Plotkin says is that some religious traditions identify primarily as ascendant traditions. They're geared towards spirit, towards the heaven, what is universal, timeless, formless, transpersonal. And other traditions, more typically indigenous traditions, are more descendantly oriented. What Francis Wella says, from soil to soul. They're oriented towards soul, towards the unique blueprint of this incarnation, and towards what is embodied and temporal. So I want to offer that whether you are ascendantly oriented or descendantly oriented, that all traditions at their core ask us to cultivate presence, deep listening, silence, and stillness as core practices for spiritual development and spiritual evolution. So rather than see these as split, I want to invite us to imagine a vertical channel that connects heaven and earth, spirit and soul, that moves through the central nervous system of the soma, that moves through the chakras. As above, so below. And add to that a horizontal channel that is the relational field, community, sangha. And I love this archetypal blueprint because right at the heart chakra is where they intersect, right? It is in the heart where this dynamic tension really comes into presence. I am currently studying with Thomas Hübl, some of you know, and he calls himself a contemporary mystic, and his work really focuses on collective trauma. And Thomas talks about the necessity of becoming more embodied channels so we can open to and both download and upload, if you will, higher levels of consciousness, higher frequencies, more light. So he refers to the divine as light, and that this light is always it's on a path of evolution. It's always moving towards greater evolutionary consciousness. And when this light kind of downloads, if you will, when that light hits what we might call a trauma field, it's a very dense field and a field of entanglement of pain and wound. So when this light kind of downloads and hits this trauma field, it creates great turbulence. Let me just turn this off. Okay. Yeah, great turbulence and disruption. And we're seeing this on both an individual level during this pandemic and collectively. Now, Thomas is really speaking at this time, and many teachers are, that we currently have access right now to a higher level of frequency. In fact, I once heard him talk about when Jesus incarnated, he said that the light that Jesus brought to the planet was so powerful and so enormous that we are still to this day metabolizing the light that he brought down at that time, which I find fascinating. So he is saying that there is a collective raising of frequency available now that can create a lot of turbulence. And he says that when this light hits that trauma field, it's like water hitting a rock in a river. So you have a volume of water that's bigger, more substantial, and it hits this rock and it reverberates in a particular way. So for me, the work of accessing deep stillness is about cultivating tools and practices that reduce the noise in the system so that we can abide in places of stillness and silence. And so I like to refer to what Thomas calls these trauma fields as the golden wound, which accesses the golden portal. So it is both the way in and the way out. And one definition of healing and transformation is the movement from fixity to flow. So anything that's entangled, stuck, dense, when we do some of the practices I'll be teaching tonight, one in particular, it kind of disentangles and allows the energy to then continue this evolutionary path that it's on. So across all traditions, stillness is core to spiritual development, spiritual evolution, spiritual grounding, resiliency, and stamina. And when we reduce the noise in the system and we begin to access that place of no mind, right? We drop below the noise, a place of no mind. We drop out of the small s self, out of fear, scarcity, and separation. And we begin to have more agency where we can abide in that place, in that field of fundamental awareness. And it is in this place where revelatory dimensions of being arise in that void, in the fertility of that black void. These places and experiences cannot be named. They cannot be known. They can only be experienced. So silence is the pathway. Silence and stillness are the pathways to these higher levels, higher dimensions of consciousness. In the stillness of my heart, I hear your name. I breathe your breath. In stillness, I am with you. In love, with love, for love, I am love. So let's just take a moment before we continue to just settle in our systems and just in your own way drop into essence, whatever that means for you, however you access that. And I'll be teaching you some of my favorite guided visualizations on how to create an invitational space for stillness. But we'll just begin by focusing on the breath right now. And I invite you to just tune into how breath is entering your nose and just notice if there's a change of temperature, any sensation as breath comes in and as breath exits. We'll just do 3 intentional breaths. And just notice just that simple act of taking 3 intentional breaths. If you can notice a difference in your system almost immediately, a down regulating of the nervous system, and the beginning of dropping into more stillness. The beginning, we get a taste. So I'm going to invite us into our first practice. Thomas Hubble says that mystics are like plumbers, and we have to clear out the draining system every once in a while to make room for what wants to emerge. So I'm going to invite us to identify a situation or a relationship in your life that feels entangled, feels a little murky, a little sticky. So just take a moment and see what pops up. And there's no right or wrong. So whatever arises, just trust and go with that. So this is an exercise from Somatic Experiencing, Peter Levine's work. It's called the pipe cleaner ball exercise. It's kind of a mouthful. And it really works best if you somatically engage the process. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So first I'll describe it, and then I'll invite you to do your own little journey with this. So imagine that you're holding a ball of pipe cleaners that are all entangled. Okay. And let's say you're working on a relationship. I'm going to hypothetically pull a name out of the air. Let's say Harry. I'm going to work on my relationship with Harry. So as I'm holding and presencing this ball of pipe cleaners, which represents the entanglement of Harry in my life, I'm going to invite you to get a hold of one pipe cleaner that represents something that's entangled here. So let's say worry, my worry or my concern for Harry. See, I'm going to get a hold of worry. And this is what I mean by somatically engaging, like actually in your mind's eye and physically getting a hold of this pipe cleaner, looking at it, breathing. I'm going to pull worry, and I'm going to let worry be as big and as long as it needs to be. Maybe it's short, maybe it's not. I'm going to go with it. I'm going to move my camera just to show you. And then when I feel like that one energy is completed, I'm going to release it to the ceiling so that it's just hanging out in the ceiling. So we're just separating out a lot of different energies that typically are what we call coupled. We're going to uncouple and just kind of tease things out a little bit. So take a moment to identify something you want to work on, something that's a bit noisy in your system that would block and keep you from accessing stillness. We all want stillness intellectually, but it's just not that easy to accomplish, right? So I invite you to find your pipe cleaner bowl. And you can turn your cameras off if you want, although I do appreciate reading the group and seeing how folks are doing. And we're going to take a few minutes now. I want you to just begin to tease out the different elements that are entangled. And we'll see how this feels when you are done. We'll take some debrief around this. So everybody take a few minutes and allow yourself to enter this process. Great. Can remember to keep breathing. And of course, those of you YouTubers that'll be watching this later, we invite you to engage in your own process. Let it be authentic. Use this as an opportunity to do a real piece of work. And as you release each one to the ceiling, just take a moment to presence it, be with it, breathe, name and identify. So, in this work of disentanglement, we move very slowly, very slow. homeopathically slow. Let's give it one more minute before we do the closing part of this exercise. And remember to breathe and let breath go all the way down into the first chakra, into the pelvic basin. So you may not be complete, but you can bookmark where you are. You can always come back to this work. Take a moment, look up, see if you can name your various pipe cleaners, each one individually. They each have their own individual frequency and energy. And when you feel ready, imagine that the ceiling of your room could just open. We'll look at Susie's beautiful sky and we'll just release everything to the sky, to the heavens. So just breathe it up and out, release. So now just take a moment to check in with yourself and just see if there's anything you are aware of that feels different or not. It's not a magic bullet, but there can be a sense of more spaciousness. So just notice what you're feeling. And in case there's anything residual that's still hanging on, doesn't feel complete, I want to invite you to place that in your right hand. Anything that feels a little unresolved, incomplete, could be a feeling you're having right now. And I want you to imagine your left hand as being able to just channel unconditional love, mercy, boundless compassion. Cup your left hand over your right hand and bathe whatever feels a little unsettled with divine love. And just breathe into that. And when that feels complete, just release. Great. So I'd like to take a few minutes to just invite anyone who wants to share anything about what that experience was like for you. You each have the ability to unmute yourselves. So if you want to, and we're all on one, oh no, we're on 2 pages. Okay. So, yeah, if you want to, yeah. So I see Susie's hand is up. Go ahead, Susie, unmute yourself.
Thanks. It was a very interesting experience. I kept going back and forth between two situations and finally settled on one. And I'm glad I did, because though I feel more spaciousness around it, what helped me the most was being able to label what it was that was tangled
Yes.
and to start to tease it apart and to be able to say, oh, I can do something about that, or I can't do anything about that. My question, though, was a lot of wonderful feelings came up, and I didn't know if I was supposed to pull them out or not.
Pull those two. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Pull those out too?
Yeah, because you're just teasing out. You're just separating things that have been overcoupled, really. Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't, and I still had this visual experience of there was still a tangle. Okay, so next time I'll take those out too.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Thank you. Anybody else want to offer something, reflection on this experience?
I will, Therese.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a strength and a weakness of making the best of things. And so I was surprised at what I came across,
Mm,
at the nuances and the subtlety and just the positive and negative that were present.
mm.
So it was illustrative to me with that tendency as just a gentle way to curiously say,
Yes. Great. Yeah. And somehow it bypasses the mind. So something can arise that is a surprise, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Susie, I was thinking when you were talking about the Rumpelstiltskin fairy tale, because the little guy, I don't exactly know what to call him, who has a lot of power, right? He's been promised the firstborn of the kingdom, and but nobody knows his name. And when he is named, poof, he just disappears. Yes, it just speaks to the power of naming something. Yeah, great. Anybody else?
I my pipe cleaners quickly turned into a ball of yarn just because I work with yarn a lot, and there was one part of the ball that just got longer and longer and longer, like wow! And when it hung from the ceiling, it just you know was a whole entity unto itself. And then I was very curious about, similar to you, Susie, like what was left, what was going to be in the center,
Hmm.
and I didn't really have time to find out what was in the center, but that would definitely be something for me to explore. What perhaps was like so crushed by all these other strands of energy that needed to be to get air and light and
Mm,
mm.
yeah. So I would just invite, perhaps crushed, or perhaps sometimes something's cocooned, it's just protected and it's held. So yeah, enter the center with an open heart, the way you did with that super long piece. As you were doing that, I sometimes this you can begin to pull on something that actually has kind of a whole ancestral lineage. It's not just from this lifetime. So That was just what was starting to marinate in my brain. I don't know if that resonates for you. I'm seeing that's a little dark in here. Let me just turn on my other light for a moment. Okay, that's better. Great. Well, thank you. Anybody else before we move on? Yes, Susie, one more.
I just want to add something that I was surprised at how easily they came out, my concerns.
Mm-hmm.
I expected a lot more resistance because I thought they were really embedded and really, really tangled.
Mm-hmm. Great. So very often this can can bring an opening, right? Can just bring space, literally. And as I said earlier, can reduce a place that's very noisy in the system. It's hard to drop into stillness when we have a lot of noisiness. So this is one wonderful exercise, and I use it quite a bit in different settings to really access, to find a way to turn down the dial on something that's kind of tying up energy and taking up space in the system. Okay, so we're going to try a few more exercises. So one somatic exercise that I also really love, and you can do this seated or it's also wonderful standing, is to do a figure 8 with your pelvis and to just really breathe into the choreography of the movement. So let's do this for a couple of minutes. You're going to coordinate your breath with this figure 8 movement, the infinity symbol. Yeah, I usually like it standing also, but tonight I'm drawn to sitting. And just really see if you can bring breath into a rhythmic relationship with how the body's moving. So as you're doing this, I just want to presence that there are a number of movement practices that bring us into stillness, especially if there's a lot of antsy energy in the system, not to judge it, but to see what helps, what supports. So this is a movement portal, if you will. Walking meditation is another one, like really walking slowly, like heel to toe, super slow. Another way to drop into stillness and a still point focus in movement. So we're just going to keep staying with this. One image that comes to me whenever I do this, it's just like seagrass, bobbing in the ocean. That's a favorite image of mine, just seagrass bobbing. So now we're just going to imagine that the arc is getting smaller, like a pendulum that's going to find the center point. So go ahead and just find that point for yourself. And that, when you find it, is a place of stillness. Now, this place of stillness is like a shaft that's moving straight through the central core, down all the chakras, and out the root chakra. Just feel the strength and the clarity of that track. I'm going to work with that a little bit more in just a moment. We're going to continue to work with this central core. Sometimes people image a hollow tube. That breath, wind, air travels through. I'm going to put out a few different images and just see which one sticks, which one resonates for you. No right or wrong. I like to imagine just parting like sheer curtains and allowing a shaft of white light to just come straight down through the center stream of consciousness light. And see if you can expand on both ends of that continuum. How high up can you imagine that shaft coming? So, again, the curtains parting. It's kind of perfect because we got a disruption, right? And we get to drop back into stillness. So see if you can invite this shaft of light. I want to bring us into imagining that this light is just gently massaging and saying hello, first to your crown chakra, third eye, throat, authentic speech, finding your voice, third eye, intuition, heart chakra, solar plexus, personal will and self agency, the second chakra, the generative center, purpose and passion and sexuality, and the root chakra, safety, security, the tribe. Let that light move through each of the chakras and just gently massage its way through. This is another way to create another type of stillness. Great. Now, some of you might find some of these familiar from my morning meditations, right? Because we did this one recently. So, within a hurricane system, there is the still point right at the eye of the storm, total stillness. So, even though things can be very swirly, agitated, intense, lots of movement, right in the center is a still point where we can be the observer, we can access the witness self, which is the meta capacity, awareness that is aware of awareness. So let's just take a moment to visualize kind of a Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, everything swirling. right? Life can feel swirly, things can be swirling, agitated, accelerated, but we don't have to join the swirl. So, right smack in the middle, find that center still point and see if you can occupy that space and be the observer. You are observing, witnessing everything swirling about. So, wherever we are trapped or in the net of reactivity, as Tara Brach likes to say, we are in a contraction. So, all these practices are designed to bring spaciousness, breath, where something may feel a little rigid, inflexible, contracted. And spaciousness is a required ingredient for stillness. Tara Brach says that between the stimulus and your response is a choice, a space. And in that space is where true freedom lies. And that moves us from reactivity to response ability, increasing our capacity to respond to life's challenges with greater skill, more spaciousness, more capacity, more love, more creativity and resourcefulness. So I want to invite us now to drop into the heart space. And I always find it so much easier to access my heart by simply placing my hands on my heart. It's an immediate connection. And breathe into your hand. And we often forget that there is a front to the heart and a back. There's a right side, a left side, a top and a bottom. So we can really breathe into an expression and experience of the heart that is much bigger than we typically engage. Strong back, soft heart. So I offer this to your heart. My dear, sweet, tender heart, where would I be without you? Where would the world be without you? We need you now more than ever. Let me vow to keep you strong. Let me vow to remember that kindness and love are the only answer. Let me vow to not abandon you when fear and worry will naturally arise. Let me vow to be bigger than my fears, bigger than any pain. Only you, dear heart, are capable of bearing witness. Only you know the unconditional love and how powerful that love and compassion can be. Let me abide in this boundless space, in the vast sea of love, in the stillness of my heart. Let me vow to come and visit again and again. Let me rest here. And I invite each one of you to bring online any spiritual guide, being, teacher, animal, totem, energy that can join you right now in holding your heart. Allow your heart to be held. And for our closing meditation, I'd like to invite you to join me and to join all of us. We have 21 souls gathered tonight to bring our hearts into a single beat. This is a meditation I developed that brings the community heart space into a single point, focus, intention, and place of stillness. So it's a communal act of stillness. So let's all imagine ourselves standing, taking our position on the rim of a circle. And if you remember how that figure 8 felt in your body, you might do 1 or 2 figure 8s to just find that very clear, grounded center point. And each one of you will have what I'm going to call a spoke that goes towards the center. It's an energy pathway. And in the center, we'll simply put a prayer. May all beings everywhere be free of suffering. So take a moment and imagine that from your heart, you could pour out a golden stream of light, golden energy pathway, right down that channel that is your spoke, and let it pool in the center. All 21 hearts engaged and directing their energy right into the middle. And let's imagine that this is raising a flame, a fire, heat, light, intensity. Something far bigger and far greater than all of our individual hearts can imagine. And imagine that we could zoom out into space and see this light shimmering, joined by many other lights of consciousness, sanghas, communities, families, everywhere, all over the earth, tending the fire, tending their fire, both locally and holding global consciousness at the same time. And just for the fun of it, let's imagine that shaft of white light that Thomas Hubble talks about that's available now. Let's imagine it streaming straight into that core central channel and amplifying this effort, amplifying this prayer, so that each one of us, as a still beacon of light, channeling love, right into the center, right into our prayer. May all beings everywhere be free of suffering. This is the power of intention. And now I invite you to inhabit the privacy of your own heart. Imagine your heart robust, eager, available for the incredible work of aliveness. And on your next exhale, just bring soft vision back into the space. I don't know about you guys, but I feel a beautiful quality of stillness in our Sangha space. But I'd like to open it up for our remaining few minutes. If there's anybody who hasn't shared yet and would like to, we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you so much. Came late, but I'm so glad I found it and made it. And thank you.
You're welcome, Gladys. Good to see you. Debbie, I see your hand moving. Are you trying to unmute?
I'm Karen. I'm
Hi,
not Debbie.
Karen.
Hi, how are you?
Good. You're looking cozy over there.
I am with my two cats. I want to just go back to what you talked about, bringing the white light all the way down at the very beginning. And you talked about heaven and earth or the sky and the earth coming together. And one of the things that I often do in my meditation is I open to Gaia and I open to Father Sky. And after I'm open to both of them, I bring them together into my heart. And it's really kind of a powerful thing to have that be the intersection. What I have not done, you mentioned a horizontal line for community and for connection out there. I've not done that, and I find that interesting. Can you talk a little bit more about doing that? So maybe I can apply that, because I got the up and down, I got the sky and the earth, but the horizontal, can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. As you were talking, Karen, the image that came to me, and maybe you work with this image, is of a tree, right? So the tree is both reaching, like longing, like reaching for the sun, longing for that upward, warmth, and longing for photosynthesis. And then the roots, of course, hugging the earth, right? Like anchoring in place. So the tree is a beautiful symbolic metaphor of an archetypal metaphor of what you're describing, of connecting heaven and earth, sky and earth. But the tree also has, right, its branches, right, that reaches outward. So, yeah, for me, that horizontal plane, when I work with the heart space, it moves very horizontally for me. And I often will use the ocean actually as one of my kind of like working metaphors of like, there are times when I feel like, whoa, I need some support. This is getting wide here, and I call in the forces of the ocean to help me hold. So for me, the relational plane is really critical. I think it is the work of our time right now. We are in such a profound state of polarization, and the relational healing, the sangha. There's a saying: the next coming of the Buddha is the sangha. That the work is really about how we stay in relationship. So that to me is all part of the horizontal plane. But it's always how I experience my heart. When my heart cracks open, it doesn't usually crack open this way. I usually get inspiration. Like the vertical channel for me is inspiration and guidance. Not that I don't get guidance in the heart, but I usually get inspiration. This is where compassion, mercy, this is where I crack open.
That's interesting, because as I work with the heart, a lot of times I find myself, it's almost like I'm in a womb, and then that just expands out into the universe down. And I balance my energy. I know that the feminine and masculine energy, the sacred, are left and right, but yet it almost brings me the feminine of Gaia and the masculine of Father and Sky. So I'm actually doing it that way. But I find it really interesting because I'm an end of life doula. I'm out in the community. I'm doing all this stuff, but I've never visualized that relational plane. And I like what you said about compassion and love and connection. And that's what the heart is about, isn't it? It's about those relationships. So I'm going to look forward to playing with that. So thank you so much for that. And I love the eye of the hurricane. That just really resonated with me. So thank you so much for sharing everything you did tonight. I'm glad I'm here. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate your comments and your enthusiasm. Yeah, great. Anyone else want to jump in?
This is Reverend Leslie, and just forgive my black screen at the moment. I can't undo it at the moment.
Okay.
I just want to share something, sort of piggybacking or adding to what was just being said. I'm a Qigong, Taoist Qigong practitioner, and I'm teaching it. One of the things that we
practice in our breathing and our movement or stillness meditations is rooting into the earth, just like a tree, reaching into the heavens, just like a tree, but also all around us. So we've got the heavenly chi or energy, we've got the earth energy, but we also have the biosphere all around us. And many of the movements reflect that. The energy center, magnificent energy centers of the body in the hands, Lao Gong in the palm, constantly in connection with, gathering from, emitting to, exchanging with the energy that is all around us, the powerful heavenly energy, the powerful earth energy, and the biosphere, unifying us with all other animate and inanimate things. So I just wanted to add that. Yeah. And the 3 Dandian, you probably know. The first one is in the forehead, wisdom. Second one, heart, compassion, relationship. And the third one in the belly, vitality.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. That's beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to share before we close out? There was a question of whether I'm still leading the morning meditations. They're still happening, believe it or not, since the lockdown, right? So Robert Farrell, what day are we on? Robert's my go-to guy. Yeah, I don't even know. We're in the 500s, but yeah, so I'm leading 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. And Robert leads on Sunday, and Molly Henson on Thursday, and Susan Riva on Saturday. So every day from 8 to 8:20, you can plug in. And this is actually very similar to what we do in our mornings, right? A little snippet. This is a little snippet of what we tap into. So you're all welcome to participate and join, of course. Yeah. All right. Any final questions or comments? Okay. Oh, Jean and Willie. Great. So such a pleasure to be with all of you. It's always nice to tap back into my home territory of One Spirit. And it's great to see you guys and happy to be here. So thank you for joining and have a great evening, everyone. Namaste.